Hello, hello, lovelies. It is Zap Chat number 6. I'm pretty sure it's 6. Um, yeah, it's 6. Um, and tonight we are going to be discussing all about shadow work. Um, it's been coming up a lot for me lately, not only in my own personal work, in my own personal journey, but a lot of people have been asking me about it, and just kind of feels like now is a really good time to talk about it because we're in a time of transition right now. A happy belated Imbolc to anybody who celebrates it. Also, we are coming up on the full moon in Leo, which that's my sign, so I love it. But yeah, it is really a time for things to start just really moving and shaking. Big change is coming, and shadow work is one of the many tools that is just excellent for making it happen. Micah's here. Hi, Micah. Um, So, as always, if you're watching it live, please put hashtag live. If you're watching it on the replay, please put hashtag replay. So, because I do love seeing people watch things on the replay, it makes me very happy. I took a lot of notes for this one because it is kind of a deep subject. So, if I'm looking down at my pad, that's why. I just don't want to miss anything, and I don't want to, you know, do whatever that I'm thinking would happen. I'm gonna have some tea. How you doing tonight, Micah? You don't hear me slurping that. Micah, Micah, Micah. How you doing, Micah? There's such an obnoxious delay on these things. Well, I'll get started, and if he responds, we'll know. Okay. So first of all, what is shadow work? Well, first of all, it is a practice that has been being done by indigenous cultures for like forever. Um, However, back in the 1800s, a psychologist that you may remember or like recognize, that's the word I was looking for, Carl Jung coined the phrase shadow work. He actually coined like the entire psychological process of doing shadow work, which is pretty awesome. That he was able to bring that into the general consciousness, so to speak. So, according to Jung, it is your shadow is the unknown dark side of the personality. So, more than that, though, it is the parts of our personality and our soul that we fear won't be accepted by others. So, it's important to understand that humans are tribal people. We are cattle. We cannot survive without each other. And especially when humans were evolving, the fear of rejection was very, very real, because it literally could mean life or death. If we were rejected by our tribe, or even rejected by our mother at a very young age, that meant death. So, this fear of rejection is very deeply embedded in the human psyche. So, if we have aspects of our personality which we think maybe won't be acceptable by the general populace, we will shove it down and pretend it doesn't exist. The only problem with that is that, that which you resist persists, right? So, some common behaviors that are associated with our shadow self is playing the victim, um, stepping on others to achieve success, unrecognized biases and prejudices, toxic inner dialogue, irrational anger response, projecting our insecurities on others. And I'm hitting something on my keyboard that I don't want to. There we go. And the reason for that is that our shadow self, I've touched on this in other Zap chats where I talk about the conscious mind being the very tip top of an iceberg, right? So you have this part that you can see above the line of our consciousness, and everything beneath that, which is usually like a gazillion times bigger, is our subconscious. And when we have these behaviors, it's because they are literally out of our control until we learn how to control. And it's not really control, it's more like learning to live in harmony with, but I'll get to that later. So how do you know when you're acting from your shadow self? You react in a way that when you look on it later, you're like, oh man, like you're embarrassed by it because it was a reaction that was stemming from a deep place within you that kind of bypassed that conscious filter that says, hey, this is acceptable for our tribe, right? And so when you look at it later, you're embarrassed and you're like, oh shit, you know. The negative thoughts that are in your head that you would never speak aloud. Like, especially like if you think something negatively against someone else and you're like, oh man, I would never say that aloud. I would never, ever, you know. Those are some aspects of acting out of your shadow. When you take on guilt for something that you had no part in, or you exaggerate your part in it, almost in a way to give yourself guilt. But in short, it's any time you feel like you're reacting instead of responding, out of your control. And that, in short, is when you're meeting your shadow self. I'm sure there's other people that could expand on that. And, you know, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist. But this is also an aspect that is taught in shamanism and other spiritual practices. So before I get into that, I have my list, darn it. So what is the work in shadow work? From a psychological point of view, there are two parts. You've got basically it's going within and learning how to find and acknowledge the parts of you that you have hidden, which it's basically being very courageous and willing to look at these aspects of yourself that you have been hiding from yourself and everybody else your whole life. And learning to acknowledge their existence without guilt, without shame, and coming to them and acknowledging their presence in your life, and learning then how to work with them or transmute them into something else. The second part of that is the reintegrating of those disparate parts into your whole self. So that's kind of where the psychology part of it ends, and where the spiritual, from a spiritual perspective, it's very much the same. It's the same process. You go within, you find those parts that are, you know, shameful to you, and learn how to love them again, and learn how to appreciate them. And if they truly are destructive to your current life, learning how to transmute them. So once again, from a spiritual perspective, It's much the same, except we use different tools to get outside of conscious thinking. So in psychological healing, you're dealing all with the conscious mind, right? You might do some meditation or maybe some hypnosis or something like that, but there's still very much a conscious connection to the work that you're doing. With spiritual work, you're getting outside of conscious thinking, to move deeper and find the source of the fracture, is what I call. Sometimes that's what I call, the shadow self is a fracture of the whole, and this often leads to massive healing, um, in a very short period of time in comparison to like talk therapy and stuff like that. Shamanic cultures have had the benefit of spiritual healers, which are able to journey. And if you need a definition of what journeying is, it's essentially the shaman goes into a trance-like state or a trance state, where he or she, sorry, I don't mean to genderize, but, or they are able to move into, what I call the other world, which is a very common, it's commonly used in like Ireland, Scotland, and stuff like that. The other world is the realm of the fairies, and it's or basically it's the world that is right next to ours, that we can feel but we can't touch, and when we travel there, from a shamanic perspective, changes happen first there and then they happen here. And so the shaman or spiritual practitioner is able to journey into those other worlds and help locate those fractured parts of yourself, the shadow selves, which have been hiding from you. Sometimes they do hide from you, like on purpose, because they're like, I don't want to come to light. No, it's scary out there, you know? So, they'll journey on the patient's behalf to find the source and provide healing in the other world and bring back wisdom to the client slash patient in this world. Make sure I'm going okay. So many notes. So I will give you an example of some of the shadow work that I have done. Some, with the assistance of a practitioner, and some on my own, once I was deeper into my spiritual studies. So, as I've already discussed, I've kind of been dealing with, weight issues my whole life, and I've been up and down, and then I found out it was about my thyroid and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, some of those discoveries didn't come to light as far as what was going on with my body and how my body was dealing with things, because the shadow affects our physical body as well, until I journeyed on it. And in this one journey, I was taken into a place where I called to myself all of my guardians and guides, for power protection and guidance. And then I called to the shadow parts of me that was willing to talk to me about, why was I holding on to weight? Why was I holding on to, these things that were causing me to be unwell? And 3 little me's showed up at roughly the same, they were about maybe a year or 2 different in age, and they looked a little bit different, maybe because of the age, but one of the me's was full of anger, a whole bunch of anger. She was just pissed off. And another one was very sad. And the other one was completely aloof, that she barely even like materialized in this journey that I took. Like the other two were very solid. I could feel them, touch them, and everything. But then this one was just kind of like, I'm nobody, I'm nothing, and I don't care about anything else, right? So in this journey, I spoke to each of them in turn to find out, hey, where have you come from? What are you feeling? Who, blah blah blah. You ask questions of this other little self of yours, and you learn very quickly, if they're willing, um, where the source of the issue is. And by the end, if all goes well, you embrace those little parts of yourself, and you invite them into your light. You invite them into the warmth and the light, and you say, hey, you've been protecting me. Like in the anger was the strongest one. She was there to protect me. She was like, hell no, we're not letting anybody hurt you. We're gonna put this barrier around you. We're gonna keep you safe. And wow, how beautiful is that, right? Like there's this little part of you, little part of your psyche that decided a long, long time ago that you needed to be protected. And this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to protect you. And the thing is that little part of you is just focused on doing its job. It's not going to do anything else until you have a conversation with it and say, hey, you know what? I love you so much for doing that. I am so grateful to you for keeping me safe all these years. But right now, I need you to do something different. I want you to just come and be a part of the light. Give me back that strength and that fierceness that you have, because I think I can protect myself now. I was really little and I couldn't protect myself when you were born, essentially. But now I'm all grown up. I think I can take care of myself now. And you just have a conversation that is super loving and accepting and full of gratitude. I mean, gratitude was the biggest thing that I felt when I was having this experience. And the same thing with my little sad me. The aloof me had been feeling that she didn't matter and that there wasn't any point to anything, right? And so I recognized in her that I would at times completely cut people off because I was being hurt by them. And instead of, addressing it like an adult, I would just completely, nope, I'm done. And wow, when I healed that aspect of myself, there was a lot that changed. I still need my cave time. I still need to, I'm not an extrovert, I'm an introvert. So, like, I can only spend so much time out there in the world with all the people before I need to come back to my cave and recharge. But the only people that I cut off now are people who I've already had the conversation with, and like, this is a toxic relationship. This is not going to happen. Here's my boundaries. Respect my boundaries or say goodbye. And that's a much healthier way of going about things. So I've kind of talked a lot more about this particular situation than I originally intended, but that's just to let you know that there are aspects of yourself that literally have been created by usually some kind of trauma, or when I say trauma, I say it can be self-perpetuated trauma, which means I don't, at some point, someone made you feel like this aspect of yourself was not okay, right? And that could be generational. It can be, ancestral trauma that keeps leaking in. And the beautiful thing about healing work in general is that when you heal it within yourself, all the generations after you are free, right? They don't have to deal with that bullshit anymore. Um, so there's lots of other different examples that I could go into, but I don't think I will. Of course, if you have any questions or if you want to talk about it more in depth, just let me know in the comments and we can do a DM or something. I wanted to touch on a deeper aspect of shadow work, which is a very specialized shamanic technique called soul retrieval. Soul retrieval is amazing. It is a aspect of shamanic work which goes beyond the whole, like, going to the other world and talking to, the animal spirits and stuff like that. It is a really deep level of shadow work in which the patient or client will come to a practitioner, and okay, let me first define what soul retrieval comes from. So some people, well, actually all of us at some point, a lot of it has to do with birth trauma and stuff like that too. But all of us at some point have experienced trauma, to the extent that our spirit, our soul, fractures and says, nope, I'm out. So it doesn't get buried, it releases. It leaves the body, right? And that part of them can be gone their whole lives if they're not conscious about it. You hear all the time about people who have had traumatic experiences, but they can't remember it. That part of that trauma caused that damage in the spirit to just get compartmentalized and then taken out with them. So it can be a very tricky aspect of shadow work, because when you do the soul retrieval, it can bring back memories of trauma. So it's a type, I'll just read my notes because I want to make sure I'm covering it. Soul retrieval is a type of healing in which a healer journeys for the client seeking aid from their guides to give them power, protection, and guidance. Then the practitioner asks those guides to find the soul parts that are ready to return. That part is really important because we don't want to re-traumatize ourselves when we're doing this work, or our patient/client. So we ask them to find the soul parts that are ready to return and facilitate that for them. So the reintegration process, oh, well, I guess I should talk more about it. So when I had a soul retrieval done, it was very simple. I laid on a table. The practitioner drummed and rattled and went on the journey, and I was on the journey with them. And in the other world, they called upon the persons, power animals, aids, guides, whatever you want to call them, to seek out the soul parts that have left but now are ready to return. And the reason that's so important, like I touched on, is we don't want to re-traumatize ourselves, and we don't want to we want it to stick, right? Because if the soul part comes back and you're now all of a sudden thinking about the trauma and all this kind of stuff, the soul part's going to be like, nice to see you again, but peace out, and they're just going to go again. So when these soul parts, imagine it like, well, like a broken vase, and you're about to put it back together, right? Sometimes they're just little teeny tiny shards, and sometimes they're big pieces, right? And so the shamanic practitioner will call upon these soul fragments, and as you're laying there, they capture them from the other world, and they become the vessel then to return them to you. And in that process, they'll blow the spirits, or the soul shards, as you say, back into you. And you just lay there and let them rest. And you can feel it. I did anyway. I could feel it when it returned. And some of the things that you do as a spiritual practice to reintegrate is, whether it's a meditation that you do on your own, or if you're journeying on your own, or if you have an official soul retrieval done, any kind of shadow work, when you are reintegrating, these are some steps that you can do. So stomping on the ground, stomp, 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 stomp. That actually does help to ground that part of you back into you. And you can hold your heart and just stomp and just stomp and just stomp. And when you feel it settled, it's like taking a jar of sand and you pound it on the table to settle it in before you put more in, right? You can journal about it. Breathing is a really important part. Singing and chanting. Ooh, man, yeah. Part of the process that I went through, even after I was gone from the practitioner and I was back at my house, I just spontaneously started singing and chanting things that I don't know where they came from, but I could feel it weaving like through me, that helped me to reintegrate that part of me. And a really, really important one is sleep. Getting lots of sleep when you're going through this process. Now, what are some of the results, possible results of doing shadow work? Like life-changing in short, but I'll give you a list. You almost instantly find a deeper sense of peace. You have a better ability to navigate your personal relationships and not be so reactive in them, and be able to respond versus, exploding or whatever. You regain, one of the biggest things about shadow work that is so awesome is you regain your personal power. You are able to, it's like, well, energy is everything, right? And so when you're missing a vital part of your soul, a vital part of your person, and you get it back, that's energy. And that gives you like a spark. It gives you the chance to really, really be like, oh shit, I was missing that. Right on. I mean, this is my experience. I'm just saying. You also have the ability to express your shadow traits in a healthy way. Because just because shadow is a part of you that you repress doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. Like I was saying with the anger one, that's standing up for yourself. That's, right. If you go at it from the right direction, it's righteous anger. It's the ability to say no. What? I had a real problem with that when I was younger. I don't know about anyone else, but yeah, saying no, super hard for me. But when I got her back and I reintegrated her in the right way, saying no is a piece of cake for me now. It's like, yeah, no, that's not going to work for me. That is not serving me or anyone else better. So the answer is no. So that's what I mean. You can express your shadow. It's a part of your unique self, and all spirit wants from us, all our higher self wants from us, is to be our unique self. That's like the clarion call of the universe right now. Um, oh, it also makes it easier to identify other traits that are coming up to be healed. So the more shadow work you do, the more you make room for the other shadow selves to go, it looks kind of nice up there. You know, they'll start to realize, I mean, literally parts of your psyche will start to seek out healing from you. And this can come up in different ways. So it is a process that is not for the faint of heart. Once you start shadow work, you'll be able to have so much more of yourself back, but it could mean bringing some stuff up that you don't necessarily want to deal with. But being brave and understanding that it's just a part of you, so you are safe. You couldn't be more safe. That is one of the greatest gifts. Some more things that you get from doing shadow work is greater self-love and self-trust. Trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, trusting your ability to make decisions for the people you choose to have in your life. That's huge, huge. Yeah. In some cases, just the ability to set goals. Because when you have all these disparate parts of you that are repressed and you don't have the energy and wisdom that they hold, God, making decisions can be a pain in the ass. Like, straight up, pain in the ass. And so choosing to have a goal and believing that you are worthy of attaining that goal, that's one of the gifts that comes from shadow work. And one more thing is personal compassion and forgiveness. That's huge too. Shadow work is like, I don't know, I guess I kind of, once I started doing it, I realized how beautiful it was. And I can't, I look for opportunities to delve into the deeper parts of my brain, you know, my brain, my heart, my soul. So there's many aspects to shadow work that I'm just barely touching on in this Zap chat. But of course, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to DM me, make a comment below. But that is all I have for now. I didn't see any other comments coming in, so I don't know if anyone else was here. I'm gonna look right now. Oh no. Okay. I think that's it. So yeah, I really love the work. It is going to be a part of my upcoming coaching program. Of course, Sacred Nutrition and the 5 Pillars of Peace, which, by the way, I'm going to announce it now. I'm so excited. Okay, so on March 20th, I will be having my very first masterclass. I'm super excited and nervous, and I hope that I have everything, you know, I'm drawing in from the universe that everything will be ready by then. But yeah, so keep an eye out for more info about that coming up in the next month. But other than that, that's all I have. Again, if you watch this on the replay, please hit hashtag replay, or if you watch it live, hashtag live. I love you guys, and I hope you have an amazing weekend. Mwah! Have a great night. Bye.